Hello everybody, I'm Gwen Campbell-Mindes. Welcome to Gwen's Bookish Ramblings, and today we are talking about the next book in the Marcus Didius Falco series, Venus in Copper. And this is the third book and the first one in the series where the government of Rome maybe starts taking a bit of a back seat, at least somewhat. Falco decides, after having escaped from prison by virtue of his mother bribing the prison officials to let him out, because there's like the two prisons, the one prison where you have a hope of getting out and you're kind of, paying for the chance, and the other, which is the prison where, like, political prisoners go and eventually just get strangled in their sleep, or something like that. The point is that, basically, in the last book, he was working with, in effect, a government accountant to look over the family home of his girlfriend's ex-husband, who they thought was dead, and selling his stuff, and basically making back government money since he was part of a plot against the government, and so on. And so he's been thrown in prison because, see, in the first book, there were all of these lead things that were being used to hold silver, and so Falco had wound up hiding a bunch of lead because various people had been skimming off the top in the mines, and one of those groups had managed to effectively get some lead that was not being tracked by anybody. Falco had found out where it was, and he decided to use that lead as sort of a cover. And he said, it's not being tracked, it's not going to be losing the government anything because it's already officially not in government coffers, so he just took advantage of it to, get himself an easy in by saying, here, we have, we've turned this into pipes, can we, sell pipes to you on behalf of this plumber, in effect. Because working as a door-to-door salesman gave him access to a lot of people. The problem is, in this book, we pick up with somebody having figured out that Falco had access to some of this that should have been going to government coffers but was not, and basically threw him in prison for fraud, and Falco has to get out. And anyways, in the due course of events, he decides he's going to stop working for Vespasian. He's going to stop working for the emperor. He is quite done with all of this imperial shenaniganry. He wants to go back to working for people, investigating their spouses to find out whether or not somebody is cheating on them. So he gets invited over to a home by these two women who say that their little group of freed slaves have made good and made a lot of money, so they're basically extremely nouveau riche, and they've got all of the trappings of the nouveau riche. Everything has to display how much money we have in the most tasteless way possible because we need to show that we are rich. The mistaken judgment call made by, unfortunately, far too many people when they get too much money is I have to make sure everything I own is absolutely glitzy and spangled and covered in gold leaf because I have to prove that I'm rich. Anyway, so the thing is that you had sort of 5 of them. 2 men, 2 women, 3 men and 2 women. So the third man of the 3 men has found himself a woman, and the problem is that his 2 female former slave friends are basically saying that they think that she is a professional bride. That is, she is somebody who marries a person who has more money than her or whatever. She's a former slave, so she, married her previous owner, which got her out of being a slave, and then arranged for him to die, and then married the next one and arranged to inherit the business and get more money, and then married somebody else and arranged for him to die so she could get, even more of an estate. And they say, well, we think that she's planning to marry him and then kill him off in order to get his estate. So Falco starts investigating her because this is what he's been paid to do, to investigate this. And along the way, we have the unending back and forth between him and Helena, who is seemingly determined to sort of make her life with him, even as he keeps on strong-arming her away to an extent. Like, he's doing a lot of come here, get away, but it's a whole lot of, I really want you here, but I don't want you living in my dump of an apartment in the bad part of town. So, he's doing that while she's saying, I don't really care, I just, I have fallen in love with you and I want to move in with you. And he keeps on feeling like she doesn't quite know what she's getting into because she is a rich woman who has not lived long term in the bad parts of town because, it's all a lark until the landlord comes banging on the door insisting that you pay your rent. Anyways, so that's going on. We have the after effects in this novel of the miscarriage that happened in the last one. And so they're both clingy and needy and mourning and a whole bunch of other things, but he's also working on this. And she is in the background helping him, much to his chagrin, because he wants her to stop doing that, because every time she helps him, she puts herself in danger of all kinds of, this has happened several times, where she helped him, but, sort of got herself in somebody's crosshairs in the process. Metaphorical crosshairs, obviously, because I don't think that crossbows, because you don't have a crosshair on a regular bow, but I don't think a crossbow would have crosshairs. I think that wouldn't really work. Anyways, although, who knows, I don't know what kind of sighting mechanisms they might have had on crossbows in the Roman Empire. I assume they had crossbows. You had to have had crossbows. Anyways, they're too powerful a weapon not to. Anyways, so he's investigating this, and the Vespasian's son continues to sort of kibit, and him and his son continue to sort of kibitz in the background, because, of course, Falco is still a wanted man for this fraud, because he didn't get out of prison because he was declared innocent. He got out of prison because somebody bribed the prison officials to let him sneak past. And he's just been kind of out there in the world. So we have all of that. And then in the midst of this, it all gets tangled in with sort of an expansive landlord property scam thing. He winds up renting a place, and by the end of the book, there's the whole thing collapses because the guy who owns the building was, planning on destroying the building in order to sort of get rid of it and start afresh and sell and all of that kind of thing. The usual kinds of landlord scams that have been ever since people owned land and rented it out to other people, jacking up rental prices, and of course the usual protection money rackets, I will not beat you to death if you pay me money, and that's your pretend, so you pay me to protect yourself from me. That kind of thing. But he manages to get himself a nice apartment, or a nicer apartment than what he had, gets out of his old neighborhood, and by the last couple chapters of the book, it collapses, and he winds up spending all of, frantically digging at it because he told Helena to stay there, and, he thinks, oh God, she was in the apartment when it collapsed, and when she shows up behind him and he's like, oh, thank God, you never listened to me. I told you to stay there, and of course you didn't. And because you never listened to me, you're not dead. Thank you. So that's a very touching scene. The whole thing in this series is that in between Falco having dramatic, investigations into people and looking into, widows who may have left a trail of bodies behind them and scamming and everything else. The relationship with Helena continues apace in the background, and by apace I mean continues to trudge very, very slowly towards them eventually getting together properly, as opposed to this sort of will they, won't they mess that they're in right now. Honestly, I wound up reading these two out of order, I should confess, because for some reason the internet resources kept on insisting that this was book 2 and it is in fact book 3, something I discovered purely by accident by getting what was supposed to be book 3 and reading it and saying, wait a minute, this is what happened in between book 1 and that book that I just read. So I have this all unfortunately jumbled in my head. Also, they've put internet on some of the buses, and I got vastly distracted from reading these by, using internet on the bus, because, man, is it distracting to be able to surf on the internet when you should be reading books properly. Because, I can read other things. I am highly distractible with other reading material. You should probably know this. Anyways, so that is my highly incoherent discussion of this book, which I can say I recommend just as highly as the other two, because this is a great series. Marcus Didius Falco is fun, and of course, his family is great. I haven't talked about the family nearly enough, because he has an older brother who got himself killed in fighting in Judea, as, happens with foolish, overconfident older brothers. So he's been helping raise his brother's kid and, that niece, and he has several sisters who are all married, and he has various nieces and nephews. His nephew is a big character in Shadows in Bronze. Great, just sort of like wonderful teenage sidekick character who's there for the whole book, and and his younger and the younger nieces and nephews, especially the nieces, sort of do tend to make a regular appearances as well. And of course his mother is omnipresent, because if you have a mother in a book, then in something like this, the mother is definitively going to be omnipresent. Anyways, I can't recommend these books highly enough, because they're just so much fun. Even when they're dark, even when they're heavy, even when they're grim, they're just a lot of fun. And Falco's endless, just spinning his wheels as he tries to figure out what he's doing with Helena and in his life and in the mysteries, it's a great time. So, if you take away nothing else, assuming you've actually made it this far and are not going to leave me a comment complaining about the fact that I am an incoherent rambler, you should take away that these are really, really great books if you like historical fiction or murder mysteries. So, yeah, that's, I think, all that I'm going to say on this, so I will see you all next week.